First, the Afghan evacuees arrived in Germany in one of the largest airlift operations in history. Afghan evacuees find temporary shelter in Germany. Ramstein Air Base, Germany. CNN. A little girl in a gold sequined dress and sneakers can't hide the huge smile on her face as her temperature is checked upon arrival at the Ramstein U.S. Air Base in southwestern Germany on Saturday. She is one of more than 22,000 evacuees who have arrived at the airbase from Kabul since Friday evening, part of the chaotic scramble to airlift the people out of Afghanistan following Taliban's takeover. Ramstein is one of the largest U.S. airbases outside America and has now been transformed into a temporary transit point for evacuees to the U.S. The U.S. is undertaking one of the largest, most difficult airlifts in history, U.S. President Joe Biden said Friday, acknowledging that despite the presence of thousands of U.S. troops at Kabul airport, the situation remains dangerous. The U.S. military hopes to evacuate 5,000 to 9,000 people per day, but so far has not met that goal. On Friday, there were hours-long delays at the airport as destinations receiving Afghans got backed up. Other countries, including Canada, the United Kingdom, Italy, and Australia, have also evacuated hundreds of Afghans and nationals out of the country. The people flown out of Afghanistan leave a transport bus at Ramstein Air Base and are met by soldiers and helpers. At Ramstein Air Base, evacuees will stay lawfully 48 hours to 72 hours, Brig Gen. Josh Olson told CNN Saturday, adding that as per the U.S. agreement with Germany, they would not stay longer than 10 days. Within 10 minutes of the Mammoth C-17 Globemaster plane landing in Ramstein on Saturday afternoon, tired but happy passengers disembarked onto buses headed to the base's welcome center. An imam is the first person to greet them as they step down from the bus and whirled away from the chaos and violence of Kabul airport. Most carry one backpack. There are Afghan men in traditional dress, women in loose head scarf trying to carol small children into line. One woman balances an enormous clothes bundle on her head as she goes through security. There are quick security checks of bags, water, and snacks are handed out and temperature checked for COVID-19. But there are also clues to the terror they left behind: a man and woman with bandaged ankles as if sprained. A little boy with his arm is a sling. A group of Afghan evacuees depart a C-17 Globemaster III aircraft at Ramstein Air Base, Germany. Temporary home. At Ramstein Air Base, there is a capacity for 5,000 people, but with flights arriving every 90 minutes, each filing up fast, and Olsen said the team is building more facilities in a kind of tent city that will house another 2,500 evacuees. Living quarters are separated by gender, women and children staying in tent inside the hangar, men in outside tent with a courtyard for families to meet. Makeshift mosques include separate entries for men and women. Inside the tent, yellow power cables allowed the evacuees to charge their phones, with a few of the new arrivals clustered around these power outlets and checking those mobiles. Elsewhere, a wall of folding military cots were distributed, and dozens of portable toilets are lined up. Among the evacuees is Hasib Kamal, age 31. Kamal is a U.S. citizen from Richmond, Virginia, who came back to Kabul to work as a translator and get married. Kamal's wedding was 1 week ago, on August 14. When the Taliban entered the city, he took his new wife and families to the airport, but there was such chaos they got separated. In the end, he could only pull his father and older sister through the gate, he told CNN. I rushed like everybody else, said Kamal, describing frantic scenes at the airport. U.S. forces were shooting fire, Taliban and Afghan forces too. People were getting hurt to left and right. It was a bad situation, he said. Kamal's wife and the rest of the family are stuck in Kabul. The only time he's spoken to them since they were separated was in 2-minute conversation Saturday morning when he landed in Ramstein. They are safe but frightened, he said. Kamal said his family asked him what was going to happen to them. His only answer was, I don't know. Both Kamal and his brother worked as translators, and his father was a colonel in the Afghan army. They feared the Taliban will target them, and while he's grateful to the evacuation effort, he said it's moving too slowly. Back in Kabul, there is still deep uncertainty for thousands still hoping to catch a flight like this. Volatile situation at Kabul airport. Non-governmental groups and lawmakers have been racing to get those in danger out of Afghanistan, finding some success but also causing frustration as people have been turned away from the airport or worse, beaten by the Taliban as they try to flee Afghanistan. Taliban checkpoint and chaos at the gate outside the airport have stopped many thousands from getting inside the facility, let alone on planes, subjecting them to harsh conditions and violence from the Taliban. Meanwhile, the Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, co-founder of the Taliban movement, has arrived in Kabul from Kandahar in southern Afghanistan, according to a tweet from the Taliban on Saturday. Baradar led negotiations in Doha in behalf of the Taliban and arrived in Afghanistan last week for the first time in 20 years. On Thursday, the U.S. Embassy in Kabul issued a security alert stating that U.S. nationals should not come to Hamid Karzai International Airport unless instructed by the U.S. government. The number of people at the airport is now 14,000, a source familiar with the situation said Saturday. Numbers given by officials on the base were often hard to reconcile and change frequently. The source said flights were going again to Qatar, Europe, possibly Hungary, and that Kuwait had agreed to accept special immigrant visa applicants, provided they were en route to U.S. Over the past day, the U.S. military has evacuated approximately 3,800 people on six C-17 planes and 32 charter planes from Kabul airport. General Hank Taylor, Deputy Director of the Joint Staff for Regional Operations, said on Saturday. Since the end of July, 22,000 people have been evacuated. 70,000 of those have been evacuated over the past week since August 14. Of those 17,000 to 2,500 are U.S. citizens. Of those 70,000, 2,500 were U.S. citizens, Taylor said. C-17 military planes are now moving between Qatar and Germany, Taylor added. Some, like those arriving in Ramstein, have been lucky enough to catch one of those planes. This story has been updated to correct the first name spell of the one of the interviewees. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh, Ellie Kaufman, and Amy Cassidy contributed to this report.